Here's the deal. The holidays are quickly approaching. There's gonna be a ton of sales, and if you're thinking about getting a new Nintendo Switch, now's your chance. Whether you've never had a Nintendo Switch in your entire life, or you're looking to add another Nintendo Switch to your collection, this video is for you. Specifically, which Nintendo Switch you should get, the Nintendo Switch 2 or the Nintendo Switch OLED, based on what you like and dislike as a gamer, aka which one performs the best. If I were to choose right now as to which one you should get, I would say the Nintendo Switch OLED. Now, I have a bias for the Nintendo Switch OLED, but I'm also thinking about this objectively, and we're going to be talking about the key differences between the two and why I think you should get the OLED, at least for now. Now we're going to get into it. We're going to be dividing this into multiple categories and deciding which Switch wins each category. The categories that we're going to be going through include performance and graphics, storage, display, portability, battery life, and obviously cost. First, we're going to be talking about the Nintendo Switch 2 and where the Nintendo Switch 2 wins compared to the OLED. This was a big thing before the Nintendo Switch 2 was released. Was the performance going to be way better than the previous Nintendo Switch models? To say the least, the performance is amazing, but that is to be expected. Obviously, the Nintendo Switch 2 is built to perform better because it has upgraded parts that are going to run higher performing games. So basically, games that need a lot of energy, that need a lot of power. The Nintendo Switch 2 uses a newer custom chip that basically helps it perform better and use more power. This also is great because the output quality when you're docking your Switch to the TV is going to be a lot better because it can support up to 4K, which the Nintendo Switch OLED only goes up to 1080p. Another area where the Nintendo Switch 2 wins is the storage. Now, this can be easily fixed, and I'll get into that, but the Nintendo Switch 2 has 256 gigabytes and the OLED unfortunately only has 64 gigabytes. However, I have been able to easily add more storage to my OLED using a micro SD card, and you can get those on Amazon. Those are really nice if you have a older Switch model and you're worried about running out of storage. That has always been an easy fix that a lot of Nintendo Switch users have been talking about. Just use a micro SD card. It's a really big plus because you have a lot of internal storage that is already put on the Switch 2, but you don't have to worry about that. And then obviously the Nintendo Switch 2 screen is a lot bigger. To me, it feels like massive. I mean, I like massive screens, but this one seems like a lot for a portable device, I guess I would say. But basically the screen is 7.9 inches compared to the OLED, which is 7 inches. To be honest, doesn't seem like that's a big difference, but it is. Alright, and then now we're gonna go into generic. So the dock on the Nintendo Switch OLED has its like standard HDMI, USB-C port. It has all those ports for those specific cords, but the Nintendo Switch 2 dock has obviously the USB-C ports, but it also has a cooling system, which is great for honestly any console. A console that has a cooling feature is really good because consoles do burn up. So the Nintendo Switch 2 is great for that because they have a cooling system within the dock. And then obviously there's going to be a lot of newer games as well as already existing games that are going to be enhanced for the Nintendo Switch 2. However, there's not a lot that have been released yet, so that is something to keep in mind. So overall, if your priority is performance and playing on a bigger screen, or even if you want more internal storage already right off the bat, then the Nintendo Switch 2 would be for you. Now we're going to get into the areas where the Nintendo Switch OLED wins. As much as the graphics do seem really great on the Nintendo Switch 2, to be honest, when it comes to display and color and contrast, the OLED wins. The OLED is designed for a immersive and more premium handheld experience. And to be honest, from my experience, when I play the OLED, there is a better color grading experience because you can actually see the colors very clearly. They're very vibrant, but there's also a lot of deeper tones that are very visually pleasing, and it's really nice to play on the OLED. Alright, this is something that actually really surprised me, but when I looked this up, it makes sense. The battery life on the OLED is actually a lot better than the Switch 2. Here's why. The Switch 2, as I mentioned, is made for people who focus on performance because it has upgraded parts that basically support power-heavy games. It's a power-heavy, power-hungry device. That is what the Switch 2 is kind of designed for. But that being said, a lot of power-heavy consoles drain battery very easily. So the main focus of the OLED is the screen, the display. It's not a power-hungry device. The battery life is going to automatically be better. And I will say, when I'm playing on my OLED, even for like a few hours a day, the battery life is still really good. And I'm really impressed because I've had this for a year. Actually, I've had this for 2 years. I've had this for quite a bit. Now, if we're getting into the nitty-gritty, the OLED can be played for 4 to 9 hours, whereas the Switch 2 can be played from 2 to 6.5 hours. That's a huge difference in my eyes, and if you really like portable gaming and you play a lot of that, then the OLED would definitely be the better choice. Alright, obviously, the OLED's been out for a bit, so the cost is going to be a lot better. There's also a lot of sales that happen with the OLED. I actually got mine on sale, which was really fun. That's the whole reason why I got it too. I got a really good deal on it. You can get it on Amazon, but you can get it pretty much everywhere. But yeah, the OLED is obviously going to be a lot better priced than the Switch 2. I will say the Switch 2 price is kind of insane. I know why they priced it that way, but it is pretty insane. And then also the whole reason why people like getting a Switch is because it's very portable. The OLED, even though the screen is massive, I still feel like it's a great size for a handheld device. It's actually the perfect size in my opinion. Whereas the Switch 2, the screen is actually humongous, and also the console itself is humongous. Like, it feels very heavy. Honestly, it doesn't feel like a Switch. It doesn't really feel like a Switch, and it doesn't really have that portability aspect in my opinion, so do with that what you will. So I would say if your priority is to have a comfortable handheld device that does have pretty good graphics, pretty good display quality, and a great battery life, then I would say the OLED wins. So my recommendation, the Switch 2 is a great device, but if you really want the Switch 2 and are willing to wait, I would say wait maybe a few more months, but I would say wait a year because there's going to be a lot more improvements to the Switch 2, and there's going to be a lot of games that are enhanced for the Switch 2. But I also think it really depends on your gaming preference. Like, if you really want a truly portable device, then the OLED is like literally the perfect size. I don't feel like the OLED could have been structured any differently because it feels like the perfect portable device. Like, the screen is big enough to where I can see, and also it's still small and thin enough to where I can fit it in my bag and take it on the go. Yeah, and then also when a new console comes out, I am very wary about getting it at first because there's going to be a lot more issues when a console comes out, whereas if you wait a bit, then there's going to be a lot more bug fixes, there's going to be a lot more improvements, a lot more upgrades. So I would say wait to get the Nintendo Switch 2 and get the OLED. If you have a Nintendo Switch already and you're just looking to get another Switch, like if you have all the Switches, you don't have a Switch 2, the thing about this is, yes, it's great to collect all the consoles if you have that kind of income, but the Nintendo Switch 2 price is very close to what I paid for my PlayStation. I have the PlayStation 5, no regrets. It's a completely different console with a completely different set of games, and it's been out for quite a bit, so there's quite a lot available on it. And I think if you're looking for a console around that price point, get a PlayStation or an Xbox, or even if you want to wait even longer, a PC. Because again, it's great if you're like into collecting all the Switches and collecting all consoles in general, but I think if you really want to spend the money, get a PlayStation or Xbox if you don't already have that, because that will be a whole other experience. And maybe you wouldn't even expect to like those types of games, but if you're willing to experiment, it's definitely worth it. I actually have grown to love it because I have been open to the fact that there's going to be other games that I might not like, but I will give it a chance, and maybe it will be something completely different from the games I play on here. Maybe I want to change up the type of games I play. Then the PlayStation is great, but then also you don't have to play like action heavy games on the PlayStation. There are a lot of games that are similar to the Nintendo Switch that you can get on PlayStation. That's always like really good to find like a good console that has a variety of different types of games for different types of gamers. So there's not just action games with the PlayStation. I actually do play a lot of zombie games though. I'm loving The Last of Us. That is a really good game. Let's say if you want to spend the money, get a PlayStation or a Xbox. But if you do want to wait for the Switch 2, that's also okay. Again, this is your decision. I'm just here to help you guys out. Alright, hopefully this video was helpful for you. I know that this can be a little bit tricky, and it's always hard deciding what console to get when you're in the market because there's just so many options now. But I hope that this video was able to help you, and my other socials will be linked in the description. You can definitely check those out, especially if you want to stay up to date with me. That's your kind of thing. Definitely make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!